What health trends are emerging that are beginning to raise concerns among doctors? I'm a family doc, and frankly, the thing that scares me the most that's cropped up quite significantly, in my patient population at least, is people using online services to get prescription meds then not telling me or any of their other doctors. I've had patients tell me they only take the blood pressure med I give them, then later find out they're also on testosterone, Viagra, Ozempic, and all kinds of other stuff. Makes giving any medical advice really tough when I'm not certain what someone is on. As a woman of a certain age, I can chime in also menopausal HRT. I live in a fairly affluent area. Just about all of my friends' acquaintances are on HRT, the majority through telehealth. There are a fair number of PCPs and OBs that won't prescribe it, and these ladies aren't willing to be told no. They just go around their doc and insurance and pay out of pocket for what they want. Anyhow, there is a point to this. Most of them don't mention they are on it because the PCP has already denied it, and they're afraid of getting fired as a patient if the doc finds out they went around them. I wish there was a way, from both sides of this problem, to disclose what they're on without fear of consequence. It would be helpful both ways. The number of younger people showing up with preventable health issues from being sedentary is way higher than most people realize. Sitting all day is becoming the new smoking in terms of long-term damage. It's going to get so bad as we all get older too. It's probably not a Reddit favorite take, but just about everyone should be weight training to some degree if you want to vastly improve your quality of life when you're older. Like practically every single health marker that we can measure improves with increased muscle mass. Walking and cardio are great too, and a good starting point. But it can't be understated how important resistance training is. I say this a lot to as many people I can. Move your body a little bit. You don't have to be a massive gym bro bodybuilder, but you should be doing some resistance and strength training. You should be stretching. So many people push back on it. So many people say, I am too busy, too tired, too XYZ, maybe later. And it's just like, it really doesn't have to be a lot, but you're really going to be paying for it in 10 to 20 years. Ketamine use in the young leading to serious bladder dysfunction. It's insanely bad in some parts of the UK. My sister has been waiting a couple of years for a kidney transplant, but the waiting list is full of teenagers with ketamine kidney. It affects the filtration rate and can allow far too much liquid to go into your bladder, making you wet yourself and damaging the filtration system of your kidneys. It can also make your anus prolapse. Don't do ketamine. I know someone a decade younger than me who attends some of the same events/festivals I do. She did a lot of ket. It's not uncommon to see her traipsing about the next day, trying to sort things out because she shit or pissed herself in the night. It's something I wouldn't touch with a barge pole, unless it was an actual prescribed thing for a hospital procedure, and even then I would see if there was an alternative. I can't imagine being in my 20s and dealing with incontinence, especially considering it could have been entirely avoidable. I was in A&E recently and shared a ward with a 19-year-old woman who was doubly incontinent due to ketamine use. Absolutely horrific consequences. I received a dosage of ketamine in the ER after shattering my wrist in an accident. The doctors used it to turn off pain receptors while casting my arm. With the ketamine in my system, I saw crazy stuff. The designs on the walls inside the ER were dripping down to the floor. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Technicolor fireworks being set off by the Caddyshack gopher who kept pointing at me and laughing. I saw 3 of my brother in the room. Not triple vision, but 3 copies of my brother, all having a conversation with each other. My brother also told me I was giggling one moment and weeping the next. Like the ketamine was playing the marimba on the emotion generator of my brain. After I was discharged, I was so groggy from the drug, I needed help getting back in the car to get home. In short, ketamine threw me for a loop. I can't imagine taking it for recreation. Nitrous oxide abuse is getting more and more common and can be really bad. My ex-partner has a friend who is abusing nitrous, literally thinks he's getting messages from demons. I had no idea how bad that stuff could be. Steve-O, of Jackass fame, actually hallucinated an intervention, by people he didn't even know while high on nitrous. That kind of reminds me of the story Ozzy Osbourne told about when he did LSD. He said he met a horse that started talking to him, and it told him to stop. So he did. Interestingly, before LSD was banned and Sandoz stopped manufacturing it commercially, it was used in psychiatry to treat alcoholism and addiction because people commonly report experiences like this. Not talking horses, but revelatory moments that instruct or motivate them to stop taking substances which they then simply agree to. Bill Wilson, who founded Alcoholics Anonymous, said trying LSD was uncannily like the experience that initially made him stop drinking, a withdrawal-induced seizure after taking belladonna, and doubled his resolve, and the hospital unit that tested it on him and got his blessing, psychiatric team of St. George's at London, was the only treatment program to record a 50% success rate on patients' first attempts at sobriety. The papers they published about it are slightly comical because of the psychiatrist's own disbelief at how simply it worked. A lot of it boils down to, when the patient was tripping balls, we explained why they should stop drinking. They said, "You're right, I should," and then they just kind of stopped. The voices in my head keep telling me to do entirely reasonable things. I had a close friend who got hooked on it. Ended up in near-constant hallucinations, lost his ability to walk because of the neuropathy, swelled up like a balloon and was in tremendous full-body pain. He wanted help, but the hospitals refused to accept him into rehab programs because it also made him incredibly violent. He died of asphyxiation while using it. Seeing him change from an intelligent, successful man and father to what he became, and losing him like that was absolutely heartbreaking. I hope your friend gets some help. I picked up a patient in the ambulance a little bit ago who huffed some nitrous oxide, who had really bad second-degree chemical burns in her mouth and swole up her vocal cords to the point where she couldn't talk just before we got there. Resolved enough where we didn't have to sedate, paralyze, and intubate or crick, and she was able to maintain her own airway, but the lower right side of her face was numb and drooping. We made the hour-long drive down to the only burn center in town just for us to roll into the hospital, and she got mad at the wait time and hopped off the stretcher and refused care and left. I hope she went back and got some help, because if she didn't, there's a decent chance she's dead. Kinda similar, but I once worked a case where a teen mother had a habit of huffing dust off. Family had tried to intervene several times, but she just wasn't having it. Found her face down in a kiddie pool after she huffed a can and fell out of her chair. Poor kid has no mother now because of it. Just took care of a patient who abused nitrous oxide, and they were suffering from some pretty bad nerve issues in their legs. They described it as if their legs were always asleep. More people need to watch Little Shop of Horrors. That turned me all the way off of trying it. I swear if I see one more patient coming in with liver failure from parasite cleanses they bought on TikTok, I'm gonna lose my mind. A guy at work told me he was doing a parasite cleanse. I said, "What are you on about?" He said lots of countries deworm their citizens like how we would give worming meds to cattle or horses. As someone who got pinworms, they were waving at me in my shit as an adult and never figured out from where the urge to deworm myself yearly is strong. They sell that shit over the counter at Walgreens. Getting rid of pinworms is pretty safe and doesn't require medical supervision. Just don't get the banana flavor. Supposedly nausea can be a side effect, but I maintain it was the rotten banana taste that made me want to hurl. Getting rid of other types of parasites, though, takes heavy-dutier medications that might poison you along with the parasites. So a doctor really needs to be involved. You didn't have to call me out like that, but you're exactly right. Doesn't matter if I sleep 10 hours or 2, I'm always tired. I can actively feel how badly it's affecting my body. I see a sleep specialist in a few weeks to hopefully find an answer. I did the sleep thing with 4 to 6 32-ounce cups of coffee while working 2 full-time jobs for 6 years, trying to pay off lingering debt from divorce years prior. I wrecked my body, did poor hours again taking care of partner with cancer for almost 4 years shortly after. Messed up badly, beyond the health issues it caused. Can't sleep through the night anymore, and my memory is shot. I fall asleep randomly through the day. It's awful. This is the side of hustle culture people rarely talk about. You pushed yourself to survive and take care of the people you loved, but the body keeps score. I'm sorry you're still paying the price years later. I've worked in a few large warehouses, and the entire workforce basically runs on energy drinks and codeine. Literally everyone walking around with energy drinks and supplying each other with painkillers if they run out, all because they are too afraid to take time off for injuries that have happened as a result of working there. More like, can't afford the time off. A lot of companies don't give sick time anyone or have tied with vacation time. Some just don't give any days off. We've normalized running on fumes so much that exhaustion is basically part of the schedule now. At some point, the body is going to start collecting its debt. I'm seriously debating having kids with my fiancé because of this. He drinks 3 to 5 energy drinks a day and then sleeps from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. His main diet is burgers and pizza. Objectively, he looks healthy and has a visual normal weight, but I see his eating, sleeping habits, and all I can think about is, that's a heart attack waiting to happen, and I don't want to be a widow with small kids. No, he does not see reason no matter how much I beg for a lifestyle change. Since he's not overweight, he thinks he's fine. Skinny fat is a thing, people. My mother lost her husband to a heart attack when my sister was 3 and I was 8 months old. Had to move from the big city she loved back to the backwater village she's from to live with her parents. Wouldn't recommend. Besides the obvious good point you're making, if you're going to be raising kids, you're always going to have to lead by example. If dad's eating poorly and not treating his body well, he's basically showing the kids that this is normal behavior. They'll pick up the bad habit more easily, and it'll be more difficult to correct these bad habits if there is a parent in the house who is doing these things. I say this with as much love and grace as I can when I advise you later in this comment. I'm probably a fair bit older than you and have already gone through the debate on having children and passed through to the other side. A really useful tip I was given was to look at my circumstances, if I was feeling under pressure or unsure, and imagine that I also had a screaming baby that was 100% my responsibility. In an airport, if you want to spice it up, taking care of yourself and your body is a lifelong act. It is something you have to choose consciously, constantly. It is exhausting. It is really hard to be consistent. Now add a screaming baby. This is basically why I decided against it. It's taken me a while to get my mental health under control, and I don't trust that it could handle a pregnancy followed immediately by a tiny thing that depends on me completely. Add in the unpredictability of how pregnancy can affect health, both physical and mental, and how scary I find childbirth, and my role is as the cool aunt. Influencer medicine. What I cannot fathom is how readily people trust I'm obsessed with this XYZ. My hair, skin, sleep has never been better, delivered in a haze of vocal fry by someone with a financial incentive, whose last obsession was 15 minutes ago and whose next one is already on deck being negotiated. We routinely struggle to convince people with large, independently funded, multi-center, double-blind trials involving thousands of participants, as if all they hear is one person's recommendation. Yet an N=1 anecdote from a stranger with a discount code and the speech affectation of an adolescent seeking belonging cuts straight through. Psychologists have known for decades that vivid stories are more persuasive than statistics, and that confidence often masquerades as competence. We are wired for anecdotes, not evidence. And for those who forego their logical brains and give in to that wiring as feels and vibes in some preferential fashion of a truth test, it can be absolutely exhausting to attempt to challenge their literally baseless, pointless belief system. I will admit, I understand how difficult it is. We spend countless hours teaching even medical residents how to critically appraise research. And to those without knowledge, complex machines and thoughts can appear as magic. But the growing rejection of the scientific method is deeply troubling. Science is not a belief system. It is a process designed to find the truth, test it, challenge it, replicate it, and keep testing it again. A civilization that loses faith in that process is not progressing. A fitting punishment would be to have every tool and comfort provided to them by science removed. I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time, when the United States is a service and information economy, when nearly all the manufacturing industries have slipped away to other countries, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues, when the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when, clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide, almost without noticing, back into superstition and darkness. The dumbing down of American is most evident in the slow decay of substantive content in the enormously influential media, the 30-second sound bites, now down to 10 seconds or less, lowest common denominator programming, credulous presentations on pseudoscience and superstition, but especially a kind of celebration of ignorance. Carl Sagan's The Demon-Haunted World. To everyone unfamiliar with this quote, it was written in 1995. We are quite far down the path at this point. I just finished watching The Pit, and they have several different episodes that touch on this trend. In one episode, a woman read online that turmeric was a healthy option, and she started taking 5 pills a day. She came into the ER because she was literally turning yellow. She couldn't understand why doing something healthy would have a negative side effect. Another episode had a lady with a severe rash because of a cream she bought on a TikTok store from China with some horrible chemical in it. It's a really good show and touches on topics like this that society is blatantly ignoring. Scary thing is, I've even seen this in scientific spaces. Anecdote. And I realize what level I'm talking about, but I used to be a science fair judge for middle and high school. The last year I did it, a girl presented a project that was piggybacking off a sensitive current event in our area, a cancer cluster that occurred around a military base. Her project was, I believe the cancer came from our water supply, and so I used an RO system to filter water to see if it can remove cancer-causing chemicals. Her method was to take a microscope image of a sample of water in which some sediment and a microorganism was present, and when these were removed by RO, her conclusion was that RO would effectively prevent cancer because it removed things from water. She did not test the water chemically. At some point she mentioned arsenic and lead as carcinogens in water, but she did not actually test the water for these things. She simply concluded that because something was visibly removed from the sample, it worked. And to reiterate, her project was not, I hypothesize that RO systems filter water effectively. It was, I hypothesize RO systems remove cancer-causing chemicals from drinking water. And her conclusion was that RO systems prevent cancer because they remove cancer-causing chemicals from drinking water. She was just like an influencer, extremely confident in every single word she said. Appealing to emotion because this cancer cluster, which was theorized to have been caused by the base dumping chemicals in the water in the 60s, 70s, was a hot topic at the time. The other judges actually agreed this was a good project and she was given second place for this absolute nonsense. I had placed her last because her project did not demonstrate the scientific method, the entire purpose of science projects. Her conclusion had absolutely nothing to do with her results. Removing dirt and a rotifer from water does not prove removal of carcinogens that she didn't even demonstrate were in the water in the first place. And even if she had demonstrated that there were carcinogens in the water and they were removed, she could not conclude that doing so prevents cancer. She could only have concluded that RO worked to remove carcinogens. Somehow she made the full logic jump from removes dirt and a microorganism to prevents cancer, and 3 adults agreed her reasoning was sound. In a project that is supposed to teach children how the scientific method works and how you come to conclusions from evidence. Holy shit, dude, my friend and I missed out on top 3 at my HS science fair for pretty much the same bullshit. All the people in the top 3 spots had super cool conclusions on paper, but if you actually looked at what they were doing, they had to make a huge leap in logic to get there. Meanwhile, my friend and I disproved our hypothesis, and our data was super boring. But we were the best in the class by far when it came to actually using the scientific method. Yet the judges put us fourth because, and I quote, "Well, you didn't actually solve anything." Like we spent 12 hours systematically dropping heavier and heavier weights onto hundreds of eggs from different types of farms to see if being free range or organic or anything like that increased eggshell strength. Apparently the answer to that being no, and here are almost 1,000 data points to prove it, isn't cool enough science. Material scientist here, that project sounds dope as hell. Your data set might actually be of practical use in the ag industry, which is more than you can say for 99.9% of science fair projects out there. Dropping shit on shit or off of shit is a time-honored practice in reliability engineering. I have a running joke on my podcast that I don't actually exercise. I take python pills that use snake hormones ethically sourced from invasive Burmese pythons to stimulate muscle growth. They are completely safe and effective. Otherwise, it wouldn't be legal to sell them over the internet. Occasionally, people who don't get the joke actually ask me where they can buy some. I was at a kid's birthday party the other day, and this dad brought his 7-year-old kid. The hostess, mom of the birthday boy, said, "You look tired, little Billy. Everything okay?" He just had this kind of dazed, stupefied look and said, "Yeah, I'm okay, just tired." His dad says, "Don't worry, I brought some Red Bull for him." I looked at the dad to see if he was joking. Nope. Kid chugged a Red Bull and was off the rails for the next 3 hours. 7. Edit. This was originally a reply to someone else's comment that was either A, mistakenly posted at the top level, or B, somehow moved there. I'm not a doctor, and this isn't necessarily a trend. I think it's stupid that this is my most upvoted comment in my 15 years on Reddit. I'm a mandated reporter. I had to call on my friend because he put Monster Energy into his kid's sippy cup. Kid had just turned 1. His reasoning was, I don't want his mom to have it easy when she picks him up. I'm not shy, so I told him right then and there it was fucked up and I was reporting to CPS. We are no longer close friends. I'm not even sure which is more horrifying, giving a baby an energy drink or his reasoning for it. I work in child advocacy and have seen some shit, but this is just so upsetting. Purposely damaging your child to hurt the other parent is wild. Thanks for reporting. I try not to judge parents, but damn, they make it hard sometimes. I was playing top golf with my BF and a family set up next to us. This preteen ordered Red Bull and kept talking about how it's his favorite drink. Mom seemed like she was treating the kids more like her friends. Disclaimer: I'm not one to only blame mom, but there was only the one parent there. If there was another parent, they should also be held responsible for that kind of thing. Kid was later bouncing off the walls. And then the parent will yell at the kid for misbehaving too. Like, lady, if you didn't want your kid to be hyper, why did you give them hyper drugs? I'm gonna guess that mom blames the wine when she misbehaves. I'll preface this by saying that I'm Gen X, so my view of this is through that lens. I work in psychiatry. I have a lot of concerns about teens and young adults. Specifically, the impacts of social media, TikTok, AI, etc. on attention span, overall cognition, independent problem solving, patience. Helicopter parents. This one is huge. This type of parenting really handicaps the kid long term. It creates a weird dependency on the parent and prevents individuation, self-sufficiency, and the development of the skills to live a full life. I worry about what the future will look like. Therapist here, it's getting more severe each year. Developmental delays because of screen time once in elementary and next to no emotional regulation. Brains grow through adversity and challenges, not being spoon-fed information. Figure out that math problem, sound out that word, and sit with your emotions. The anxiety just to engage friends is wild to me. My son has a large friend group, and so many parents reach out to plan things via me because their kids are literally scared to reach out to their friends. They're teenagers, not toddlers. This is what helicopter parenting does. If you constantly do things for your child that they can do themselves, they won't do much anymore at some point. They learn to let others do their things, and those others keep agreeing with that. Sadly, completely dysfunctional. I was volunteering at an obstacle course race for kids a couple weeks ago. I had a pretty challenging wall climb. The amount of kids who I would be coaching through the course, not helping but coaching and motivating, then their parents would physically grab them and life them through the obstacle was crazy. The kids that pushed through themselves and figured it out were so pumped and proud of themselves, then the ones where parents just did it for them got nothing out of it. I'd imagine this translates to most of those kids' lives. Reading comments like this always give me a boost of energy to not get tired in my parenting. Trying to teach kids emotional regulation when you're still trying to learn it yourself is exhausting, but I refuse to give up. It's deeply rewarding when I see one of them struggling with emotions and then stop and use a coping skill I've been trying to teach them. Seeing their confidence grow when they do something they're nervous about and realize they're stronger than they thought always makes me so emotional. Absolutely agree. Mine is only 4 and very strong-willed, so she tantrums a lot, but occasionally she will stop herself mid-scream and say, "I'm going to go to my couch for a bit and come back when I'm calmer." And I'm like, yes, emotional regulation. My 5-year-old now removes himself to his room when he gets worked up. He'll return in 5 to 10 minutes, shrug his shoulders and say, "I needed a break to calm down." Or he will be attempting to draw something new, and it won't be turning out how he wants. I'll hear him take some deep breaths and say, "This is practice. It's okay for it to be bad. I'm learning how to make it good." And I'll almost cry because I still struggle with perfectionism. Damn, your 5-yo is more at peace with his mistakes than my grown-up ass. I'm glad to read about parents like you and your successes. My mom prolonged screaming matches when I walked away because she wasn't done with me yet. I'm really worried about our school issuing Chromebooks at the end of 5th grade for the kids to use and carry to do most assignments through middle and high school. Our son is smart and has less attention issues than most, but this could become problematic. This is my biggest concern with my young children. Science shows kids do better with books, not computers. Why we don't apply these findings is beyond me. I'm a teacher in a device-heavy school, and I've done away with them this year. I am, in fact, forcing them to read on paper. Their reading scores have almost doubled in the first semester, and I do not think that's a coincidence. I'm a high school teacher in a school where every student has a Chromebook, and I'm doing the same thing. It's a bit more work on my end to print things and modify assignments from our virtual textbook to in-class activities, but it's worth it. As much as possible, we do 0 screens in my room. Group discussions, activities, writing by hand. If you're a parent and you're reading this comment, it's the screens. We know that it is. A recent study shows just how severely academic rigor has fallen off since 2013, and it's screens. Read to your kids. Make them play outside and socialize. Do puzzles. Limit screen time, and especially social media and short-form video, as much as possible. Why we don't apply these findings is beyond me part. If it is that the tech sector has incredibly strong lobbyists, they can influence government and educational institutions at all levels to push the sale of their products. See this article, The Guardian/Comment is Free, 2025/or01, for example. Not a medical professional, but I work around teenagers, and so many of them don't even Google things anymore. They just ask ChatGPT or TikTok and believe whatever they see. It's really scary, actually. At least with Googling something, you had to try to find a source and actually read something yourself. Ditto. My high schoolers use Google Lens and ChatGPT for everything. I assign a graph to analyze. Screenshot that shit. You were asked to meditate in the forest and write a poem about it. You're going around the school looking for forensic evidence to build a case that your teacher carefully crafted just for you. Boring. This isn't engaging enough, so I'll spend that time on my phone watching videos instead. You were given an assignment to practice chemistry calculations where you're making different solutions of Kool-Aid and taste testing them. Screw that. I'll just type the questions directly into Google, write down what it says, and then make whatever I want. They get so indignant when they get caught or held accountable too. They feel so entitled to it, and the parents are no help. Yeah, some back you and get it, but we have so many issues with parents who argue that everything the kid did wrong was actually our failing as educators. Doesn't matter what we do, handbooks, remediation, banning AI, consequences for phones, etc. It's never good enough. And it's exhausting having to discipline and needle and nag 90% of the class time instead of doing what I actually entered this career to do. For what it's worth, those sound like really cool assignments to me. Thanks. 15 years this month. It's definitely not like it used to be. I still get really good feedback, but I fear I'm becoming one of those teachers who walks in every day saying, "Damn kids," and I know it's not my fault. That's the worst part, and not just find a source, but question whether you should trust random websites just because they show up high in the search results. Physician and parent here agree 100%. Between the helicopter parents and tablets, kids these days seem completely incapable. Zero attention span, zero problem solving, zero ability to cope without being fed a constant stream of stimuli. There is also this level of apathy that I find really worrisome. I grew up with encyclopedias and libraries, but we would seek out information all the time. My kids have every resource at their fingertips, and if they ask a question I don't know the answer to, I'll suggest they look it up online. And they are just like, nah, even though it would take them about 5 seconds at most. I can remember being so bored as a kid that I'd pick a random letter from the encyclopedia and just read entry after entry. These kids never even approach bored because the algorithm always has something fresh for them to scroll through. And the algorithm is just telling them that everyone is out to get them and why they should be weary of anyone not exactly like them. Boredom is so important for development. It makes you seek out your own entertainment and fuels curiosity. I could spend whole days in the summer playing in the garden, looking for ants' nests, digging for treasure, making dens, and doing all sorts of things. Or just making things, doing crafts. I loved summer school projects where I'd get books from the library and learn stuff. Got a book on botany and identified all the plants I could find. Or sitting watching old films, or reading, writing stories, going on bike rides, etc. So that's the thing with social media. It's just enough of a dopamine hit to make you not motivated to do anything else. We don't get to the level of boredom that sparks real creativity anymore. Saw a post on a Reddit from a teenager a few weeks ago saying that no one dances at parties anymore because everyone is filming for social media. And no one wants to risk looking foolish and then have it immortalized online. Getting to be a teenager in the 90s is starting to feel like I caught the last chopper out of Nam. This type of parenting really handicaps the kid long term. It creates a weird dependency on the parent and prevents individuation, self-sufficiency, and the development of the skills to live a full life. I'm a Zennial without kids, but I watch a lot of police videos, and one of the shocking things to me has been people in their early mid-20s that get pulled over by the cops and start crying that they need to call their mom. Seriously, calling their parents and wanting their parents to deal with the officer over the phone. Meanwhile, the officer is like, "Put your phone down. No, stop. Put your phone down. I don't need to talk to your mom. I need to talk to you." When I was that age, my parents were the last people I would call, since I wouldn't want them to know about it. People working long hours and or several jobs to afford bare-bones living, and then having no energy to exercise, cook healthy meals, or socialize afterwards. Society may praise hustle culture, but that shit is going to catch up to everyone eventually. I'm a therapist, not a doctor. It isn't a health trend, but a trend in the sense that it's more common. My uncle has said he's seeing more signs of physical child abuse in his job now than he has in the last 8 years he's been a GP. I do infant mortality review, and yesterday I just commented about how I'm starting to see more neglect and possible abuse cases. I've had cases where families had multiple babies dying, where they should have lost custody after the first. Resources are just getting strangled, and helper workers like myself are struggling with a lot right now. It's hard to try and move the world for your work and then be fearful you aren't essential enough to keep the job. I read about how this trend would happen as more people were forced to have babies due to changing laws around abortion. Whether or not one believes in the right to abort, the fact remains that if someone who doesn't want a kid is forced to have a kid, they won't automatically become a good parent. There will be more abuse and more neglect. When asked why I am pro-choice, one of my first answers is always, because people who genuinely do not want their children are unlikely to be good parents. Providing a good childhood is hard work, especially in an expensive society that doesn't offer nearly the supports it should to struggling families' parents. Modern parenting is not easy at all. Everything is expensive. Parents are judged harshly for things previous generations did without so much as a second guess. Looking at you 10 p.m., do you know where your kids are? People who don't want to be parents, or who really just shouldn't be parents, are not going to magically step up because they are now parents. Slashing food assistance, cutting WIC, cutting Medicaid, none of these are going to help at all for the individuals who are already on the edge and now have a kid they didn't really want to have. Some people buckle down and do a decent job even if they were lukewarm about being parents. Many don't, especially when the job is only getting harder. Yesterday we went tide pooling. Heard one set of parents berating their daughter because she wasn't looking at the tide pools like they wanted. That poor girl perfectly articulated how they were making her feel, and her parents took no accountability for their behavior and told her it was all her fault. Another mom was literally shrieking at her daughter to come be by her, then shrieked at her daughter, "You're making a scene!" I half loudly told my husband the only one making a scene is crazy mom. A few moments later, that same woman screamed, "I'm making a scene and people are now judging me." Made me sad how those kids are going to turn out. Some people truly have no business being parents. I actually think your comment and the one below it about the kids getting screamed at for picking berries wrong both highlight another issue I've noticed as a parent who has to interact semi-frequently with other parents. Our social media worlds, Insta, FB, whatever the latest apps are, highlight incredibly perfect moments, beautiful, meaningful experiences where everyone is pretty and perfect and happy with the activity. Many young women fall prey to these advertisements for what motherhood and parenting is supposed to look like, because social media has been in their faces most of their lives, and it has replaced much of actual social interaction in communities for an already isolating time of life. I think it puts a ton of pressure on the parents to mimic these perfect experiences they see advertised. And yes, I'm saying most of what is on social media at this point is, in some way, an advertisement. And the less grounded or emotionally regulated ones tend to melt down themselves when things don't look the way they're supposed to. Kids often are not nearly as impressed or cooperative for these perfect moments as you would like them to be. They will whine, complain, not care one bit about the tide pool, animals, berries, whatever. Example, I drove 2 hours one way yesterday to an awesome new water park, only to discover it was not awesome. Less water park, more really fancy pool, and half of the facility is apparently closed. Not a bad day, but absolutely not worth the road trip. I consider myself pretty grounded, but I admit listening to the kids complain about the activity that I just spent $200 in gas, snacks, food, admission to do was annoying at best. I believe a number of millennial and younger moms are under a ton of pressure to get it perfect, and many of them lack the skills to cope well when things fall flat. Kids act like kids, unappreciative, unimpressed, bored, whiny, downright uncivilized, and the Instagram perfect activity instead turns out to be very mediocre, stressful, and generally unmagical. I work in a school. I wouldn't say I'm seeing more child abuse, but this generation of oversharing parents who overshare their kids' lives online just sing like canaries when asked anything. The parents never taught them privacy, so identifying abuse is much easier now. They just straight up tell me, "Dad beat me in the face with a Barbie for not sleeping," when I ask how they got the black eye. Kids used to be harder to get to talk about anything, but now they're so used to having no privacy, they just tell you everything without hesitation. I asked my niece last night what happened to her foot and ankle, and her response was, "Mommy wants to kill me, so this will be an interesting week." Please treat it like you would any other parent. I tried so hard to get my sister to acknowledge my nibblings being abused by their father. I thought it would be easy since we were also abused as kids. I was wrong. I sounded the alarm as soon as I noticed my niece was being groomed and the sexual side started. She still buried her head even after needing me to rescue her kids, hide them in my house, etc. I had no choice but to report it. Long story short, I'm the black sheep, NC, with my whole family, but there's a restraining order stopping him contacting the kids at all until they're 16. Thankfully, the police and social services cared more than she could. Parents refusing vitamin K shots for newborns, putting babies at risk for dangerous bleeding. It seems to get lumped in with vaccine refusal. The doctor woman that delivered my first started asking about medications. She was standing there with baby birth goo, all over ready to go into what everything was and why it was all super important. I could just tell she was ready for an argument. Like she was dreading this part. I could actually see the relief on her face when I told her, "I'm not a baby doctor. You tell me what the baby needs. I trust you will do what is best for her." She smiled and started telling me what she was going to do and why. Yeah, tell me all about it so I learn a little, but my engineering degree is not helping me much on baby medications. Gotta see my first newborn death from this a few weeks ago. Massive head bleed. Family then proceeds to get their church and everyone they know involved, praying for a miracle.